Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night's edition of Born Political. Real happy to be here tonight. We have some amazing, unbelievable news that we're going to share with you. Tonight's guest is my wife. We both work with Community Speaks Out. It's been pretty much almost every waking moment of my wife's life for the last 8 years. I'm involved, but not as heavy as she is. She takes all the intakes, does a lot of the phone calls, and is really the personal part of Community Speaks Out. I'm really proud that she's here tonight. She is no longer the president. I took over that. She is the vice president. So please welcome to the show, Vice President of Community Speaks Out, Tammy Cruz. How are you, honey?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thursday night date night
like
is in person.
Yeah.
So this is our date night sometimes.
Yeah.
She watches, sometimes she doesn't, but tonight you have to watch because you're actually on.
I'm actually here.
You're here. And the news that we wanted to talk and spread was, not the greatest of news, because the way that the money was given to towns is through a lawsuit. We know just by looking in the news that 105,000 people lost their lives to addiction this past year, 85% of which had to do with fentanyl. Our group has been really working to try to solve that problem. We feel like we're always working uphill. Mm-hmm. And this money was basically given as an award of a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, CVS, Walgreens. The lawsuits came in. The towns are going to get basically 15% of what is awarded to the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut's going to dole out the rest. But we really wanted to make a point that a local nonprofit here in Groton was going to receive the money. It's in excess of $112,000. We'll find out the exact numbers. But our town council voted last month 8-0 to give us the money. I went to a finance committee meeting last week where it was 5-0 with one abstention, and last night it was 26-4, and 26 to 6.
I'm here just to correct him.
She's to correct me, but it shows that our community understands the task at hand, and although we would have loved to have a unanimous vote, we didn't. But we're going to make sure this year coming up, we're going to hopefully have some big things coming, and we're going to share that with them during the course of the year. I think I want to reacquaint people with what we do, because I think there were some things that were said at the meetings that really didn't reflect who Community Speaks Out is. Comments like we only help people 18 years and older. And believe me, I encourage anybody that wants to find out about us, come to our meetings, third Wednesday of every single month. They said that we only help people that are 18 and older, which was very funny because it happened to be the night of our youth group last night.
Yeah, it was.
And we're going to talk about all those things, all things good with Community Speaks Out. Yeah. That's what the job and the mission is tonight. But to really kind of to show that we're not this little box and that we're meeting people in everywhere.
We're meeting them where they're at.
And you and I mean, just briefly, when we were thinking about age and the gamut, just 3 months ago, you and I went to a house with a 90-year-old woman, mm-hmm. right, with a son that was addicted who was 60.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So and then it went from that to, you think of the sober softball tournament, and we have children that are 3 years old that lost their parents and don't even understand how they've been impacted by addiction yet. They're too young. So the gamut has run from 0 to newborn babies to 90-year-old people that are still struggling with it. I'm hoping that maybe we could share, I think, our biggest, to me, impact. And that's been the sober living part. And you are really, you and Linda Labby are really responsible for most of that. And how many people did we help last year? I get the numbers wrong.
It's probably around 180. And that's times, what, 100? Because every individual you help is connected to families and friends and the community at large, right?
Yeah.
I think that, yes, that's a big impact that we have, is it's ending homelessness in the community of addiction. But it also, I think, what's really been one of our biggest impact that we've been doing recently is, adapting to what the needs are in our recovery community, right? So we started doing recovery activities, and it says something when you go to you do a sign up for an activity and you go there and you hang out with all these individuals and you're starting to see the same faces.
Yeah.
So it's starting to make us realize that recovery is happening and it's getting sustained, but it takes a lot of different services, wraparound services, to continue to give them the support to actually sustain recovery.
And then people ask me, who do you serve and how do you help out? A lot of it ends up being the recovery community itself will reach out to someone, and they're getting out of rehab or they're coming out of prison. A lot of times it has to do with, hey, I may not be able to afford this, or where can I go? You get the phone call, and now you're usually on the phone, usually with the person that's looking for shelter, or actually looking maybe for help or payment. But sometimes it's the mom that says, my son's getting out of jail soon, and what do I do?
Yeah. We work hand in hand with the sober houses, see what they need, what their requirements are that need to be met. And we do the best we can to be able to support that individual coming out. We want to give them the best chance for them not to go back into the system, right? We just actually had a request like that yesterday. So we are going to be paying for a month because they require a full month. So we're excited to be able to do that.
So now, and those are the folks that are in addiction. And when you think about, this is the one disease that I tell everybody that we started calling it a family disease, and we said, wow, this is breaking. This isn't just a person's. And now we realize that it's actually a community disease. It's every single person, all hands on deck. And we just talked about the folks that are actually in recovery and how we help them, provide them with meeting space at our office. But I want to reach back and, because last night at the meeting was brought up that we don't really reach out to youth, and they were trying to look for an organization possibly that encompassed everything. And I'm so proud of our organization. I kind of, when you're hearing people kind of mischaracterize the group in any form, you get a little upset, but you got to understand that people don't know our group like we do. And that's what we're here tonight explaining. So what's a youth group, and what is the outreach to the kids? What does that look like?
And it's not just that they don't know the group. They don't really put the time in to find out what the group is about. That's a little bit of the frustration. We have a youth group that we started. We found a need, a request. We listen to everyone's needs in the community. What are we lacking here? And one of the areas that we were lacking were we have young people who have lost their parents, or their parents are in active addiction and they're being raised by family members, and they need an outlet. So we were able to start a youth empowerment group that teaches team building, helps them be able to speak about some of the issues they're dealing with. We actually are lucky to have Courtney, who is a teacher in the Harvard school system, and also who's partnering with her and to help is a social worker. So we have those two dynamics in the room to help young girls and boys in this journey of hopefully breaking the cycle of what they have been dealing with. So that's one aspect. I mean, that's great. I mean, they do team building exercises. We had 1 week where they had a really hard week. And so we took them to the smash room and they were able to smash things and get, it builds a lot of, not just empowers them, but it builds a team of students that actually would have never met each other before. And they get the support they need. We are very proud that we're partnering with Students for Recovery at Grosso Tech. This is an amazing young group of individuals that recognize that mental health and addiction, it's a big problem, and they want to be part of the solution. And they're doing a recovery fest April 28th at the Guanic Plains Park, and I encourage everyone to come. It's 4 to 6:30. And we have an amazing speaker that Community Speaks Out is actually having come down and speak. And I just highly encourage people to come out and see what the youth are really doing. The way to break some of this cycle is to empower the youth.
I'm hoping people do listen to what you just said. There's nights where we go to our meeting, and it's been 8 years. I mean, the time has flown. But with these meetings that we've been doing, once a month, the third Wednesday, we get to hear people tell their stories. And I think if you're out there and you're struggling with a loved one in addiction, and you're trying to put logic in your mind, you're trying to surround this person with regular logic that they should just stop doing drugs and just get a job, all that logic will go out the window when you hear someone speak that went through it. You understand the process and how difficult it can be. And I've learned more from people that come to our group and speak. And I just wish, especially people that are struggling, if you're a loved one and you want to find out about this disease, you can watch any television show you want to watch or read any book, but you absolutely cannot replace what we get at these meetings. And that's why when the youth group goes out, like Grosso Tech, and Tammy she mentioned we should really go down that night. We did it last year. And the community came out, I think, very strongly. I think there was a lot of people, but I think it wasn't big enough. Our kids, when I said 105,000 people, our kids, we've been saying this for the last 6 to 7 years, that the kids today are actually living through, population loss-wise, something that's worse than the Vietnam War. We have kids that went to Fitch, and they've lost 5, 6, 7 kids that they graduated with just 5, 7 years ago. That didn't even happen in any of the worst wars that we've had. We need to pay attention, and that by pay attention, I mean go to things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Go to Quantic Plains Field, and so what else can I expect down there? We have this booths that not just us. I think the fire department goes down there too.
Yeah, the police will be down there. I know that. We have different agencies that will be full of resources. I know that CCAR will be down there. I know GASP will be down there. The Phoenix, who we partner with to do recovery activities, will be down there. Reliance Health will be down there. There's going to be probably Aware. We have, we're just trying to get as many organizations out there that we can, just to have as many resources out there. But I want to make sure we know is that I don't want people to really wait to get connected and to learn about this, because we don't wait till it knocks on our door like we did.
We did.
Because we're late to the game then, right? It's hard. It's to actually have to be proactive versus reactive is the way we're going to make a difference in this crisis that we're in.
And one of the things that, and you already talked about it, but the outreach, and I didn't understand it at first because, we were just doing these fun things, thinking, let's just give people something to do. A lot of times when you're in recovery, and early recovery especially, we may have helped you with 2 weeks rent, and you're just taking those few paychecks and getting yourself caught back up in life. It doesn't leave a lot of room for spare change where you can go out and watch a movie or do certain things. And we started doing the bowling, and we've done, was that our third one, or that was our?
Several.
We've done several. Yeah, maybe third or fourth, and maybe one with the youth group also. And what I got to hear, because sometimes you forget when you get caught up in life, that when other people are going through something, you don't realize what they're going through. And to have somebody come up and say, you know what, I didn't see this guy for like 3 or 4 years, and we roomed together when I first got sober, and I just thought he died because I hadn't heard from him. I didn't know, I just thought he wasn't around. And in this community, if you don't see somebody in the recovery community, if you don't see somebody for a while, a lot of times it could mean that they went to California and they're living their best life there and they can't come back. But most people assume that you passed away. For them to come to me and say, hey, it was nice just to see them at bowling. Mm-hmm. It was nice just to walk in and say, oh my God, how you been? And the camaraderie that it meant to them. And we had at the council meeting, you could tell the story. The young man came to the podium, social anxiety, you could see apparently, and got up and said, some pretty powerful words to the council about what it means to have camaraderie.
Yeah, they don't experience a lot of support. I don't think they were expecting the conversation and the fact that we were fighting for them. I can't explain the gratitude that these individuals have, because they know they've experienced really lows in their life, and so for them to get into recovery and have a group like ours fight for their services and fight for their rights, it's really powerful. To go back to the $112,000+ that we're going to be able to utilize, we want to remind people part of remediation of the opioid crisis is harm reduction, right? And addiction is a very hard disease. Mental health and addiction goes hand in hand, and life gets in the way. So trying to keep them busy, trying to give them a support system, trying to have recovery coaches around, and having those services for them is so crucial to keeping them in recovery. Narcan has been a very controversial thing in the media.
And we have it right in front.
I have it on the table here. It's Narcan. It's a life-saving drug, just like an EpiPen or any other medications that are administered to people that have, any kind of reactions if they need the diabetes medicine. It's a medication that keeps people alive. I saw a really important quote. I was at a conference that said, what was the actual quote? It said, saving lives is not controversial. And that's exactly what Narcan does. And we've met plenty of people now that have been Narcaned several times and now are in recovery. And that's what makes this worth this little small device that actually gives some medication into the nasal cavity that actually saves a person's life.
Now we've had instances that the story of Narcan goes much further than us training somebody, and it's happened multiple times now. I can remember a few years back when the very first person who did the training for us was Alan, who since has passed away, and it was devastating to our group. He had lost his son to addiction and became a vital part of our group. Wanted to do something and said, you know what, I'll go offer to do the training and then give training. And I still have chills thinking this, but it was a friend of ours, somebody close to our group, to me and Tammy, and we felt like that this was a family that was going to need to know how to use Narcan, that they had to really figure this out and figure it out fast. Their loved one had overdosed a couple times, so we insisted that they learn it. And we called Alan, who left his home in Waterford, drove to their home, and taught them how to use Narcan. And a week later, they were using that very same Narcan that Alan gave them that night to save their loved one. I'd love to report that person is doing unbelievably well. She is a beautiful human. Everyone is already, but she's excelled and she's helping other people, running a home. That's a life that was saved. So that's one example. And then, you know, we have a small office on 214 Thames Street, and we had a class with about 35 people. And what was the story that came out of that one? We did the training, and then what? I think 2 of the Narcans?
With less than 2 weeks, 3 people were saved by our Narcan. That was with the collaboration of Reliance Health in Norwich. Yeah. One of the people that work there on our board, and that to hear the feedback was amazing. So one of the pilots we want to roll out is to actually get businesses to become Narcan friendly, and which is all part of becoming recovery friendly communities. Which I'm excited that I just got an email from forwarded to me from GAS, from Carolyn Wilson, and CCAR. You know, that's one of the main goals that we've been talking about, and at least it's already in the rolling, and we're going to collaborate hopefully together and get this going. That Groton will be a Groton-friendly community. Yeah.
I want you to talk about Narcan a little, because if you're out there listening and you haven't used it, if you have a loved one coming out of a sober home with fentanyl and everything that we have now, and
out of treatment,
out of treatment, or out of, you know, wherever you're coming from, and you're worried about that person, you need to learn how to use it. You can actually go, we just passed a law. I say we, I'm not in the legislature anymore. But you can actually get Narcan on your insurance. Look out for groups like ours, because you may get it for free. If you don't have to spend the money, please reach out to us. We do training. But even without training, what you need to know about Narcan, and my wife can tell you firsthand that you don't get hurt if you accidentally give it to someone who didn't need it. But it's very important to know. It's not like you're given an EpiPen, because I think that's actually strong and you can do damage to somebody. And I don't even know that. I don't want to say that.
Yeah, he's not medical.
But I'm not a medical guy. But I've been to enough trainings about Narcan, and Tammy can share her story about how she taught the class, like walking the walk and talking the talk.
I think the biggest question people have is, like, what if the person's having another medical emergency? What if they're having a heart attack and they are bluish gray and they look like they're having, you know, an overdose? Well, I can tell you, before they had these lovely nasal gadgets here for Narcan, they had the injectable, just like a EpiPen. And I was doing a training and grabbed all my excitement of doing training. I grabbed the wrong one, and I actually Narcan myself on accident. And can tell you that I felt nothing because I don't do opiates. I don't have to take a medication on a regular basis or anything. So basically, Narcan just when your receptors in your brain, the pain receptors in your brain, get flooded with the drug. This just knocks off off the pain receptors, so that because that tells you not to breathe. Like, you flood your receptors, you're unable to breathe. You stop breathing first. It takes a little bit of time, and then your heart will eventually stop. So with this Narcan, it actually knocks it off the pain receptor, which then allows your brain to start to function correctly and tell yourself to breathe. So yeah, I could tell you that I was totally fine. It's better to administer this than not administer this.
And you call 911 no matter what.
And then afterwards you call 911. Before you used to say 911 first, but right now fentanyl's so much more potent. We need to really get that first dose in before we call 911.
So, and that to me, and that you're also covered by the Good Samaritan Act. So if you go, because when somebody wakes up, they're not going to be very happy. But these are all things that you can reach out, because this isn't, the whole show's not about Narcan tonight. It's about our group. This is one little tool that's in a toolbox. You know, and again, without knowing everything about addiction beforehand, you see the comments of people saying, God, is it really worth it? Because if someone uses, and then they're going to use it as a crutch, they're going to, you know, what we found out is that young lady that we said has been in recovery for, I think she's been in for about 5 or 6 years now, helping other people. You know, what I've seen is everyone that we saved, everyone that we've been able to help, everyone that comes back, they give. Whether they're speaking at a school that your son or daughter or a loved one may be attending. You know, we have Marco, who, again, we want to talk about the gamut of what we do. I know Tammy had an idea of writing a play, and there's a play that we already have a playwright wrote it. We own the rights to it. We're looking for a school that's going to perform it, but we are in the schools, and Marco will go in. And if Marco came very close to dying a couple times. If Marco wasn't there, he wouldn't have the impact that he's been able to have on students. Oh. And you've seen it firsthand. Like when he's out there speaking, the person you want your kids to hear from about drugs is someone that went through it. Not somebody that read about it, not somebody that thinks they know something about it, somebody that actually knows something about it. And Marco's a teacher.
Yeah, he'll be actually at the Recovery Fest. He has 30 minutes to speak, and if you really want to learn in an authentic, firsthand version, come listen to Marco speak. I do want to say, when it talks about giving back, I'll give you an example. I was at McDonald's with my grandson the other day, yesterday actually, and I'm very aware of people around me. I'm hyper alert. That's just who I am. And there was 2 young men that walked in, and I noticed they had walked from across the street, which is where one of the sober houses are. And he was supporting him and, you know, talking with him and giving him tips. And I couldn't hear exactly what he was saying, but he bought him a smoothie. Then he walked over. One guy went over here, and the other guy sat over here. And I could tell a girl from McDonald's goes over to give him an interview, and I called the other guy over and I kind of said, "Can I ask you, are you from Recovery 12, one of the Recovery 12 houses?" He goes, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I said, "Well, I'm Tammy from Community Speaks Out." So we had this beautiful conversation, and he was there helping. He had 90 days clean. This person was just coming out of rehab. To watch him support him just in 3 months into his recovery was the most amazing thing. The payback is tenfold, right? So as they leave, he thanks me. I explain what we do, want to make sure that he knows that, anything we can do for him, to give us a call. And as they walk out, you could tell he got hired, and they like high-fived each other, and they're like, that's the kind of stuff that I experience.
And in life in general, is always about connectivity.
It's all about
It's never about, when you're alone, you're alone. Connectivity has been basically the glue that's held everything together. Community Speaks Out. I talked about the youth. I've talked about the folks that we've helped in addiction. The group started because there was 2 parents that had no idea that what we were dealing with. All we knew was that our community was sick. Yeah. Our group, a lot of the focus in the beginning, and still to this day, when you come to our monthly meetings, we still have parents that walk in. There'll be probably this next Wednesday when we have a meeting, there may be someone that's had no idea or no clue that their loved one was addicted, and they walked in and found out because the police called them and said, "Hey, you can pick up your son or daughter," because we actually found them overdosed on the side of the road. That's the beginning of the journey. You know, even though the journey started when your son or daughter or your loved one was a baby, that's the beginning of the journey. But your journey in a recovery and learning about the disease of addiction, your part in this is more than any other disease that we could ever think of. If your loved one has cancer, your only job usually is to keep them happy and make them comfortable and bring them to the hospital. That's not the truth with addiction. With addiction, it's you making decisions about how you're going to handle them, how they'll receive money from you, if they can live in your house or not live in your house. It's devastating. It's something that none of us want to go through. But if you are going through it, I think it's important that you show up. And if you're not going through it, God, Matt Auger was our town attorney that wanted to learn about it and came and learned about the disease of addiction by just coming. Yeah. And it hadn't hit his family. But Matt learned a lot. And
he was representing a young woman who lost her life by getting released from the hospital too soon. And I believe out of that, they keep him a little longer now to make sure that there's no, the drug will actually slowly come back around, and they can stop breathing again. And those are the kind of things that needed to change. I'd be remiss if I would say that this group started with 2 parents.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
We brought it to another level. But this group started because one young man was brave enough to speak out at his local high school, which was our son, Joseph Gingerella. He spoke out, and that was not easy for him. But as his mom, I knew my son very well, and I felt if he didn't own it, it was going to take him. And I can say, it didn't take him.
And our whole community really reached out. And,
Oh, yeah.
and to me, when you came to our group and you saw we had Karen Florin was there as a reporter one day, and then we had the chief of police. I told him that we had a young lady that had overdosed earlier that week, and the father wanted to meet the police officers, and then he wanted to follow up the next day and go meet the firefighters at Narcander and the first on the scene of the police officers. And that's the kind of connectivity that we need. Our police, and I'm very, very proud to say this, I know we had a part to play in it, but it all starts at the top. And I think Chief Fasaro has been one of our biggest advocates here in town. And it trickles down, because when police interact, I mean, you have 100 stories like this, but when someone overdoses in Groton, or even, for example, where someone had passed at one of the houses, and it wasn't a drug situation, what is the police response, and what are we getting back from the community?
Yeah, I mean, the sober house was like, they got treated nothing but respect, and they were shocked. They've never been treated like that.
They lived in other towns, right?
They lived in other towns, and they've just assumed it was an overdose. There was no accusations, there was nothing but support, and it was a long time before they could actually remove the individual, and it was amazing. I mean, I will say working with our police is very, very important, because when I just went to a conference over the week that me and Linda went to, 10% of individuals right now are seeking treatment. That's a staggering number. Only 10%. We have to meet them where they are. We have to be boots on the ground. And some of that happens to be with law enforcement.
Yep.
And if they understand and they have compassion and empathy for that, then together we can make a difference.
And the one thing I've learned through this whole addiction talk, I am a different human being, is when you start talking about things that make you feel uncomfortable. Maybe you're talking about Narcan and you're uncomfortable because people are using it as a crutch, or you're talking about methadone, or whatever thing pops in your head you're uncomfortable with. Get comfortable with it. If it's saving lives, if it's letting people live, and we're meeting them where they're at, it's not really our business how someone's getting that.
Saving lives is not political.
Saving lives is not political.
No.
We are down to our final minute. It's a half-hour show. It feels like it's a 3-minute show.
I know.
Me and you, obviously, we could talk about this forever, but I love you, honey. I'm so happy that you do everything that you do. I really am. I know that we stress out and we think about all these different things and the way the community is affected, but I cannot be more proud, and am more proud of our town government. There's Rachel Franco. I want to shout her out. Sean Powers,
Kathy Chase.
Like, these are people that stood up on that floor last night.
And that was a bipartisan, even though addiction should not be political, but to have a bipartisan vote was important.
And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for sharing your Thursday night with me. I can't wait to see you out and about. We'll see you at the festival on April 18th.
Yes, come out 28th.
28th, not the 18th.
That's all right.
See you then.